Frank McComb, we finally have you on Reelblack TV.
Yeah, okay. I'm with it.
All right.
Now,
Well, people that know, but for folks who are new to Frank McComb, how did you get your start?
Cleveland, Ohio. I can't put an age to singing, but I knew I wanted to. I knew I wanted to play music. I always knew I wanted to play music. My first instrument was at the age of 8. Was drums. But I grew up watching my mother, all of my aunts, and my grandmother sing in church and stand around a piano during the holidays and do their thing, man. They would be singing, and I mean, harmonies were on point. I mean, they really, really sang. I knew from watching them that that's what I wanted to do. So one day after a church service, I was messing with my aunt Evelina. I was watching her write a blues tune because she was a big Nancy Wilson fan. She wrote this blues, like jazz tune right after church service. And I'm like, man, she's writing a blues tune in church. I thought that was so cool. To me, that was creative freedom, you know? And that, I was really impressed by that. And I told her, I said, you make playing the piano look so easy. I want to learn how to play. She said, okay, Red. Red was my nickname. My grandmother called me Red Boy. And she said, okay, Red. So I get back to my mother's house and I change out of my church clothes and put on my play clothes. You know, back in the day, you change clothes. And I put my play clothes on and I'm ready to go outside and play football on the street with my friends. Back then you could do that too. Nowadays you get killed. But I was ready to go play. And here comes Evelina with this Casio keyboard with the speakers built in it. With the drums built in, you know. And she puts it on my dining room table and says, come here, Red. I was like, no, I didn't want to learn today. She said, you don't mess with Auntie Lena about no music. You sit your little red self down here, you're going to learn. So she taught me my basics, just my basics, major, minor chord, the names of each key, and what the purpose of the sustain pedal was. That was it. And she worked with me for 1 hour, 3 Sundays in a row. And then she had to take on a new job and couldn't teach me anymore. So when you do the math, I had 3 hours of piano training. So it was then that I got my mother's records that I grew up listening to from the time I was a child and scratched up all the records. I pulled out all the old Stevie Wonder records, the old Herbie records, Oscar Peterson, Aretha Franklin. I pulled out all the old stuff, Natalie Cole, Parliament, Funkadelic, James Cleveland, Shirley Caesar and the Caravans. Yeah, my mother's house rather was, a big pot of gumbo when it came down to music. There wasn't like one specific thing that was listened to. If it had soul in it, it was played. Even Benny and the Jets, Elton John. So back then, we didn't have the technology we have today where you can scroll, just scroll back and hear someone. You can change the pitch or slow the song down without changing the pitch to actually copy somebody's lick, Now we had the needle on the record. We had to pick that needle up, put it back. By the time we finished repeating it and playing the lick, play the lick, that record was destroyed. So that's me, old school.
What is it about Donny Hathaway that strikes a chord in your heart?
Nothing. To be honest with you, I didn't listen to Donny Hathaway any more than I did Stevie, Peabo Bryson, Natalie Cole, or Aretha. I believe what he had in common with all of them that stood out with me was the fact that I felt what they were singing. Nowadays, and I'm just gonna put it out there because I don't have nothing to lose, I don't feel what I hear. That's a problem. I don't feel what I hear. If I can't feel it, it's just another sound to me. If I can feel it, then that's emotion coming from them to me. I can feel you, Back then, I felt what I heard. And I felt keyboard players. I felt Chick Corea. I felt Herbie Hancock. I felt Oscar Peterson. I felt Aretha when she played. She didn't have to open her mouth. She can play. And it's sad to say that there's probably some recording artists out here today that probably can play, but they can't express it. I can. And I'm going to continue to. But yeah, Donnie was he was a genius. He was a genius. But as I said, he came pretty much from the same school my mother and my grandmother and all of my aunts came from. Holiness Church, Baptist Church, man. And that's what I related to.
Well, I know we have limited time. So, I'd love to sit down with you longer, but
it's all good.
But I did want to ask you about another genius who recently made transition, Prince.
Yeah.
I know you had opportunities to work with him. How did you guys first become acquainted?
I was playing a show called playing a club called the Level One in Beverly Hills, California. It's not the Level One anymore. It's called something else now. It's a sports bar. But there was a young promoter that asked me to do a show for him. Brother named Tory Crow. I'll never forget. And I think I was his first promoter he had ever. I was the first artist rather that he had ever booked. Y'all gotta forgive me because I've been running for the last 5-6 days from Poland to Baltimore to New York to here. So bear with me a minute. But Tory reached out to me, and I think I was the first act he had ever booked. Or promoted. And it was the three of us. It was a trio. Me, my buddy Raymond McKinley, who was working for Sheila E., and Rochelle Farrell playing bass, and a female drummer named Cora Coleman, who I had just took under my wing for the last 2 years prior, taking her out of the country. And, she was an incredible drummer. And Raymond walks up to me right after sound check and says, "Y'all forgive me. The Little Purple guy might come and hang out tonight." And I said, "Wait a minute. When the words little and purple are in the same sentence, you can only be talking about one guy, and it's Prince." He said, yeah, he's looking for something to get into tonight, so I told Sheila to tell him to come down and check you out. And I was like, okay, cool. Obviously, Sheila E. relayed the message because he showed up. He and Rochelle Farrell, it was the same night I met Rochelle for the first time because they were hanging out, and they came to my show. So in between sets, they had me go to this really dark room and sit down and rap with him, and then I invited Cora and Raymond. Raymond went off and got something to eat, but Cora and I walked in, and I got to talking with him. We were chilling, and he said he wanted to just do some jamming together. I was with it. I said, well, I want to be able to bring my band, and that's how it happened. So Cora and I, and Cora's now husband, Josh, we would all go up, and we would just be jamming. And just jamming turned into playing all the house parties, like the Grammy after parties he would do, the Oscars, NAACP Awards, which I was honored to be on the 36th annual NAACP Awards. When you check it out, there's a bald-headed, light-skinned guy sitting at a Fender Rhodes piano with all this white stuff around it. That's me. A lot of people probably don't know that, but that's me. We had a good time, man. We wouldn't start in that house, the 3121 house. We wouldn't start till 1 in the morning. We would get out at 6 or 7. And I tell you, I remember playing one night, and I was too tired to take that heavy Fender Rhodes out of the house. And I told them, I'll come back and get it later. And every time I would call to get my piano, they would say, well, Prince wants to be here when you come to get the piano. And I said, okay, well, what's he doing tomorrow? Well, he's not in town. Can you come Saturday? No, I can't come Saturday. I got a show. And that happened for almost a year. I just gave up. I'll never see that piano again.
Wait, so I wasn't where 3121 was an address?
3121 was the address to the house. He turned around and made like a good, what's the word? Words escape me. What's the word when you take something and you make a business out of it pretty much? Everything he touched turned into a business thing. What's the word I'm looking for? Purple, he made a big business thing out of that, The 3121 thing, that was the address to the house that we were playing in. Carlos Boozer was his name, the NBA star, written in the house. 3121, I think that was the house, 3121 Deer something. And he took 3121 and he turned it into something big. It was the address to the crib.
So I imagine you spent a lot of intimate moments with him just talking?
We did. We talked about a few things. Most of it was music. Most of the time it was music. Yeah, most of the time it was music. I didn't want to get too deep with him. I I didn't want him to think that I was just another person trying to get something from him. In fact, I had to make him respect me in that manner. I played once or twice with him and told him I didn't want his money. And sometimes, as bad as I needed that money too as an indie artist, because I literally do everything myself, management, booking, record my own records, and I sell them directly to the people. There is no machine behind me. I am the machine. So for me to tell Prince he can keep them 5 figures, and they were high 5 figures, to earn my respect, but I could use that money with 2 young kids at the time. But at the end of the day, I got that respect.
So you did a lot of jams with him. Did you tour?
No, I did everything behind the scenes with him. Everything was behind the scenes with Prince, with me. Everything was behind the scenes. We never went on the road. The only thing public I did with him in front of cameras or with anything big was just the NAACP Awards. But the more intimate performances, I think if I had a choice between the two, it would have been nice to be out there with him. But the more intimate time, 7 people in the house and we're playing for 7, 8 hours in the middle of the night, that's priceless, buddy. That's priceless.
So there's a lot of there are fans watching, but a lot of musicians are watching. Mm-hmm. You know, what is it that you want people to know about Prince? What as an artist, as a musician, mm-hmm. as a human being, what's the most important thing?
What could I verify about Prince, basically? Mm-hmm. He was a great businessman when it came down to taking care of his business. I have to say that. I don't know about the will and all of that, but when it came down to handling business with me, it was right. I was never late getting paid. He was never late paying me. He paid me right, paid me more than what I asked for. Yeah, he did. And when I demanded my respect, he gave it to me. Prince was a person just like you and me. We could sit down and rap over dinner. He treated me like a recording artist and not just another musician. You know, I came in meeting him as a musician, but I was still the lead in where I was. I didn't have the name then that I've grown to have now. He treated me like a person. He treated me like a recording artist. I respected the fact that he could take pretty much anything and he could sell it. And I will go on record and say that Prince is the reason that I became an independent recording artist. He endorsed it. I had just put out my 3rd record, Straight from the Vault, and he saw my wife and me actually pressing CDs during rehearsal. So I was rehearsing, and there was another office right attached to the rehearsal room we were in, and my wife was able to duplicate her burning CDs. And on the breaks, I would go in there and help her. And Prince walked in behind us and just looked over our shoulders and said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "Man, I'm running a family business. I hope you don't mind. I know this is your time, but if I don't do this, I don't eat." And he was like, okay. Walked out the room. Later on that night, because we had a show we were rehearsing for at his house that night, we get to the house that night, and he asked to see the package that we were working on. But I was working on 2 CDs at the same time. I showed him Straight from the Vault, and then I showed him the CD that I just recorded. It's a 1995 bootleg because somebody had taken a record that I did for Motown that wasn't supposed to be released. And they burnt my CD, and they were selling it in the UK for 25 pounds. And at the time, 25 pounds was $50 US. This record had Branford Marsalis on it, Billy Preston, Harvey Mason, Doc Powell, Tony Maiden, Freddie Washington, the bass player who wrote Forget Me Nots, and You Remind Me of Patrice Rushen. I had a lot of people on this record, and he was selling my record. So I took back what was rightfully mine, my music, ordered a copy from the thief anonymously, and made that my master. And I started duplicating it, but I put some integrity with it. I made my own cover. It's a white CD cover with a skinny leg inside of a construction boot. The construction boot represented the fact that the man was working hard, but the skinny leg represented the fact that he wasn't eating from his work. And I explained it to Prince when I gave it to him, and he stood in his dining room and screamed. He said, "Man, you don't need nobody. As long as you can keep pressing this up and getting it to the people, you don't need nobody else. It'll come. Everything you need will come for you." He was the one that encouraged me, standing in his dining room, to go independent. And here I am, about 12 years later, doing it. It's unheard of, and when you can't explain it, that's when you know it's God. Can't be explained. When you cannot explain your life, or you can't explain how you're doing something and you're successful with it, that's when you know it's God. Man can't take credit for this. Now I can give credit to those that have imparted in me, like Branford Marcellus helped to jumpstart my career with Love Stories. Steve McKeever helped to jumpstart my career, signing me to Motown. And when Polygram bought Motown back in around 93, things were out of his hands. So I can't blame him. I can't blame Branford. Basically, you can't blame the waiter for what the cook did. The waiter didn't make the food. So I can't blame Branford. I can't blame Steve. I have to look at the companies that they worked for at the time. Now, I'm not anti-record company. I'm anti-bad business. I'm allergic to bad business. I like good business. I believe in building relationships. And if I was bad at this, then I would not be existing for 12 years, literally doing everything myself for 12 years. And I feel that I'm a walking testimony. I'm not that big household name. I won't say I'm famous. I'll say I'm popular. And I believe that what I'm doing, I know for a fact that I'm where I'm supposed to be. Because there are people coming back to me saying that my music touched their lives, you know. So I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Well, last two questions. One, it seems like you were ahead of the curve in a lot of ways in terms of the record industry. I mean,
That's a compliment. Thank you.
If there is a record industry now, I don't even know.
No, it's just an industry.
What are your thoughts of where music is now? I mean, are people paying enough for it? Do people place enough value on it? Are the real artists getting heard?
I don't know. I have to be honest, I don't know. I know music is in a lot of trouble right now. Music's in a lot of trouble. I have to be honest with you, man. I don't know. I tell you what kills me is, people try to come up with all these new names for something that's already existed. I'm not trying to bash or be funny, but what is neo soul? What is smooth jazz? Smooth jazz, I mean, Grover Washington back in the 70s, we're talking about Mr. Magic, we're talking about Spyro Gyra, the Crusaders. If they came out today, would that be considered smooth jazz? It wasn't called smooth jazz back then. Why does it have to be a new name today? And if you got some cats that are out here like Najee, Gerald Albright, you got these cats that were out before the title smooth jazz existed, and now you want to pigeonhole them in that? Would Stevie want to be called neo soul if he came out today? What is a neo soul? I don't really call myself that. I'm a soul jazz artist. A lot of people want to put me in the same category as Eric Roberson and PJ Morton, and these are my friends. Love them to death, but we're not the same type of artists. We're not. And I say that respectfully because these are my guys, man, and I still respect them musically. I respect what they're doing, and they're putting out positive messages. But if you listen to our records, we do not sound like the same style of music. They're more R&B driven or more urban R&B driven. I'm not an urban artist. I'm a soul jazz artist. Look at what Ramsey Lewis was, Herbie Hancock was back in the day. They were soul jazz pianists. Why has it got to be called smooth jazz today? There was a thing called Muzak. It was elevator music. Is that what smooth jazz is today? It sounds about like it to me, but yeah.
I think a lot of that labeling comes from when radio was really important, trying to get things played.
Could be. But I tell you, I heard Branford say it in an interview once. We have a tendency here in America of putting everything in slots and boxes. I travel. Most of my work is outside of the country because, I don't want to get too deep in this. If I get too deep in this, man, I better be careful because I've been in this business this long, keeping my mouth shut.
Well, you don't have to name names, but speak your truth.
What I will say is that soul music it seems to be more respected in other countries than it is here at home. They didn't want to hear what Jesus had to say when he went home either. So, but I will say it's not the buying public's fault. The buying public, they know who I am. But it takes money to get me to them. It takes money to get on the radio. It takes money for that. And I make a good living doing what I do and cutting out all the expenses because I got kids in college. Yeah. And I do believe if I just continue to listen to the people who are my bosses, the ones who tell me I can buy shoes and tell me when I can't buy shoes. You tell me when I can go on vacation and when I can't. If I keep listening to them and giving them what they want, then I think I'll stay on top. But it takes money to buy radio slots, you know. And as long as you have the majors buying out all the time, it's going to definitely make it hard for the indie, you know. And I believe what changed the face of music is the fact that you have so many people buying out with so many majors buying out the times, you know, and they're playing their songs or their artist songs on the radio, and that's what people are hearing. So that's what they're going to go and buy, you know. I think that was part of the change in how music became more of an art form and not music anymore.
Well, tell us about Live at the Bitter End, and I'm going to hand it to you.
Oh, this thing here. Live at the Bitter End, remembering Donny Hathaway. I had just finished recording an album called Live in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I flew from Johannesburg to New York because I had a gig at the Bitter End. When I got there, I was talking to now the late Kenny Gorka, and I was telling Kenny about the record I had just recorded. And the reason I was talking to Kenny about it is because there were so many live albums recorded there at the Bitter End. And everybody that's anybody has played the Bitter End. From the Isley Brothers to Stevie Wonder to Pieces of a Dream to Miles Davis to Billy Preston. They've all played this place. And there's so many live covers on the wall, album covers on the wall, and Donnie's is one of them. Kenny offered me the opportunity to record a live record there. And I thought he was out of his mind, but yeah. And I said, yeah, man, I'm gonna do it. I'm with it, yeah. I was so high about it. Then I got back to my room and the high came down real quick, man. And I had to think about it. Who's gonna furnish it? Because that's all gonna come out of my pocket. It costs so much money to put musicians up in New York, man. Just the hotels alone will break a person. And I really thought about it for about a week and a half. And I learned from Roy Ayers, you never tell Hollywood or New York no. Never tell them no. Roy said that they asked him about that movie Coffee. Have you ever done a soundtrack? Yeah, I did a soundtrack. Yeah. He got back home. He had to figure out how to do a soundtrack because he knew not to tell them no. And that's the first thing I thought about when they asked me about doing that live record. I jumped at the opportunity. I said, I'll figure it out later. And I just happened to have, and I'm not name dropping, but I just happened to have a conversation with one of my mentors, George Benson. And I asked Benson, I said, how should I do this record, man? And at the time, he was working on his tribute to Nat King Cole and did a Kickstarter, the whole nine. He said, you need to go and take that same recorder that you used to record Live at the Bitter End, live in Johannesburg, and take it to New York. And you need to record this record with just a piano. And if there's ever time and place, he said, cut out the bills. You don't need a band. And if there's ever time and place you want to pay tribute to Donny Hathaway, this is it. And he said, man, I was in the house in '71 when Donny did that live record. I was like, what? He said, yeah, man, you need to do it. Do it by yourself. And I want to thank Korg Electronics. I hope you don't mind, but I endorse Korg and QSC. And I want to thank Korg for supplying that Korg D3200 that I recorded it in. Both records. I recorded in those records. I recorded those records in that instrument. And I'm glad I did it. And people traveled literally from around the world to see this recording. Man, there were people from, and it's in New York, but there were people from LA, there were people from Maryland, Birmingham, Alabama, Spain, Germany, Italy. And the lady that took all the pictures for the CD, her name is Fleur Hudgens. She flew in from Amsterdam that night and took every single photo that you see here. And I was honored to have a few celebrities here too. You got Ruben Santiago Hudson in here. You got my high school music teacher, Reggie Pittman, his trumpet player. He came. Some of the guys from Korg came, and it was really great, man. It was a great night. I'm glad I did it. I'm really glad I did it.
So where can people find out more about you? And
FrankMcComb.info, FrankMcComb.info. And you go there, you can find my social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Those are the main three I work with. There should be information there about my radio show, The Living Room, where I play anything I want to play, even unreleased stuff, live performances that I've done, some of everything. It's like listening to music in the house with me, literally, in my living room. Just to put the word out, I have unfriended about 1,500 people, and I'm only friending people on Facebook that's going to interact with me because that's what social media is all about. I need you, the buying public, to be my publicist. They said word of mouth is the best advertisement. Well, today that's considered word of mouth. Start speaking. Speak on the behalf of Frank McComb if you want to hear some music. Get your soul fed. Just that simple. Don't forget your CD. All right, y'all.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the interview. Peace. Hey, this is soul jazz recording artist Frank McComb, and you are watching Reelblack.
It became quite disingenuous for America to say to a segment of its population, the marginalized, oppressed black folk, we need your help to fight a war for democracy when black folk were not experiencing democracy in America.
They run the banks in New York. Puerto Rico was a country. They came here 150 years ago. And they ran their own banks. So they came here as bankers and started marrying white women and producing white bankers. And white bankers, 90% of your banks in New York is run by. That's why as much money and power, you can't get a Puerto Rican mayor, because them crackers ain't gonna let it happen.